I guess it's running.
Okay, well there are your 3 books now.
Thank you very much. There's my questions.
Yeah, shoot.
What was a difference when we use an atomic bomb and a regular big bomb, for example? Are there any specifics?
Well, it's just the one is the atomic bomb is much more powerful.
No, in the airplane, you know?
Oh, in the
When you're dropping
airplane.
it, for example.
Well, number one, your tactics had to be entirely different, because the scientists told us when we started working on this thing that if we went more than 9 miles away when the bomb exploded, it would blow up the airplane.
That's 9 miles.
That's 9 miles. So basically, and over Europe, why, we used to just go in and drop the big bombs and this sort of stuff, and then just keep going right on over. The target was here, and the bomb would come down, something like that. But with this bomb, if we kept on going straight over the target, I wouldn't be here.
So basically, they warn you. Did they show you, for example, movies of first tasting and how powerful is it?
Yes, after they had the explosion, the test in New Mexico. After they had that test, they showed us movies. No, I'll take it back. They did not show us movies. They tried to show us movies. The projector wouldn't work. Here we could make an atomic bomb, but we couldn't get the damn projector to work. But they told us all that they could, and they showed us a lot of still pictures and everything else, as much as they could about it. So yeah, we didn't go over unprepared at all.
What was supposed to be? What you're supposed to do? For example, when meteor condition over the target was unbearable. For example, not bad. Clouds, for example, out of nowhere.
We were supposed to, in that
wind.
case, and our first bomb. You see, we dropped 2 different type bombs over there. We dropped the only uranium-235 bomb ever dropped. All subsequent bombs were plutonium-type bombs. But in our particular case, they told us that if we took the bomb up there over the target and could not see to drop it under any conditions, we should take it out and drop it in the ocean. Do not bring it back to the base with you.
So it was designed or destroyed itself, or if you dropped it in the ocean, what could happen to it? Or it should be
It'd
picking
probably
up?
just sink down in the ocean. That's all.
So there's no any
It is-
devices to float it or something?
No,
So
no,
just forget
none
it.
whatsoever. And in fact, the day after we dropped the bomb, a fellow there on the Tinian came into the operations office, and I was on duty. And he said to me, do you know anything about that bomb you dropped yesterday? And I said, a little bit. I said, what do you want to know? And he said, I'm in charge of firefighting here in the island. He said, if you want to air your airplanes cracks up on takeoff, he says, do we rush in and try to put out the fire, or do we turn around and run the other way? And this sort of thing. We talked about it a little bit and decided it didn't make a bit of difference.
Yeah.
But that's why they told us not to bring the bomb back to the base with us. They didn't. There was no way to make it safe and this sort of thing. And we would have had to, we'd had a very heavy airplane to land, very hot landing, and this sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, I know. You couldn't land with it.
That's right. And we only had an 8,500 foot runway.
There was any additional, for example, extra landing places, just in case, for example. You cannot go back.
Iwo
It
Jima.
was planned, Iwo Jima.
Iwo Jima, the only one.
Nothing on mainland, for example, in China.
No,
Iwo Jima.
Iwo Jima is the only one. Now, in the second plane, the second mission, because of the location of their target, they did land on Okinawa, because if they wouldn't have, they'd have run out of gas.
Okay. And another thing, what would you do if bomb for some reason didn't go? Just stay stuck in the bomb bay. What you supposed to do in this case?
We'd send the bombardier back there to kick it out. And if he
So-
couldn't kick it out, we were dead.
No, you could just plummet in the sky and jump out or something.
Well, we could. We could have parachute out and this
So
sort of thing.
this is another
But
option,
we
yeah.
never even considered that.
Not
We-
even,
we
not
ne-
even consider.
We never even considered that.
Could
something
happen,
like
you
that.
know. A bomb stuck. And
Well,
like you tell me,
but it went.
projector doesn't work. You know.
It went perfectly. It worked perfectly and everything else, and we didn't have to do anything.
You have a lot
about
of experience by this
Yeah,
time, of
yeah.
course, with the bombing. What was your most difficult flight? This one or somebody else in Europe or
it.
Africa?
Oh, or in Europe.
You were more dangerous. I guess.
Well, all of them in Europe were more dangerous. That's number one, except for the bomb and this sort of thing. But considering the fact we'd get away from the bomb, why any flight in Europe was more dangerous than this flight over there, because when you flew over Europe, you got opposition and this sort of thing, and you got all kind of fighters and everything else. My most difficult flight from the standpoint of navigation, however, was a trip back from Gibraltar back up to England with General Mark Clark in 1942, before the invasion of North Africa, because the weather was horrible. No, you couldn't get a line of sight.
B-17?
The B-17, you could not see the stars, you could not see the bottom of the ocean or anything else. And I just kept putting myself a little further to the left because the Germans were to the right. So I kept putting myself to the left and this sort of thing. And then to top things off, when I got up to England, they had a system where you get a QDM, I think they call it, and you call them on the radio station and they give you the heading.
What is a QDM?
You would call a radio station and they would give you the heading to fly to your base from where you were. They gave me one 180 degrees off. And if I had followed it, I'd have been out in the middle of the Atlantic without gas in the water.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it, because I'll tell you why I didn't believe it. If they were right, I was flying into Germany and everything of that type. And if I were flying into Germany, I figured I'd have a lot more opposition by that time.
Yeah. What would be better, landed in the ocean or landed in Germany? In this case?
I think I'd take the Germans myself.
Yeah. What they do? How they treated, for example, after this bombing? How they treated the pilots that were parachutes?
Oh, the Germans?
Yeah.
Pretty good.
No, sometimes they shoot them. That's all recently.
Well, every once in a while you'd get something that would be shot, but
Just
for the most part, the airmen that were shot down went into Luftwaffe camps, not the regular prison camps and everything, and they were treated reasonably better. Not a whole lot, but a little bit better than what the regular prisoners of war were. My next door neighbor over here was captured on Corregidor, and by the Japanese.
Marine?
Yeah, and he was captured on Corregidor, was a prisoner of war of the Japanese the whole war.
So they send it from Corregidor somewhere. Oh yeah, it's a death march, Bataan and everything.
Well, he was not on the death march, but he was sent up to Japan to work in coal mines and stuff like that.
What kind of airplanes you trained when you? By the way, how was decided? For example, you were volunteered or drafted?
Paul Tibbets. I knew Paul Tibbets very well.
In the beginning of the war,
The
when
beginning
you
of the war.
started.
When I got out of navigation school, I was sent to the
So you were drafted.
340th Squad. No, I was not drafted.
Okay.
I joined. I was going to be a pilot,
No, okay. So
and I washed out. Then I went to navigation school. And when I got out of navigation school, I was assigned to the 340th Squadron. Paul Tibbets, Captain Paul Tibbets, at the time, was the commanding officer of that squadron. So Tom Ferebee, Paul, and I were the three of us that flew together, almost all during the time. So when Paul got command of this atomic outfit, why, he called me and he says, "I want you for my group navigator." And so I says, "Okay, I'll go along," and this sort of thing.
But when you trained first, what kind of airplanes you fly in the States?
Well, in the States, B-17s.
This one.
And actually, there's a picture of one around here someplace. The old PT-18, the Boeing, built by Boeing. It was a Stearman. The Stearman built by
Those are
Boeing.
big airplanes from the start, not like biplanes or something.
No, they were small planes to start with. They were biplanes.
Oh, okay.
Small biplanes. I've seen models of planes that are as big as a plane I learned to fly in.
And basically, what kind of planes you fly? B-17, B-29, nothing else, or
That-
Rapers or something?
Oh, and when I was back in the States and this sort of thing, anything that would come along, I would fly in it. But basically, they were all C-54s, transports, B-29s, or B-17s.
B-17.
Yeah.
How do you consider work of map service? How you consider maps you flight with? Was they good?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Both
Perfect.
Europe and
Yep.
Japan operation.
Yep.
For example, I know they give in Europe this napkins with a map. Yeah, do they do the same thing in the Pacific?
Yep. Yep. Well, what
Ocean everywhere.
but what you're talking about there, the ones that you're talking about were strictly survival
Survival maps.
maps, and if you were shot down, that was the only thing you had.
So what they give you? A map of China or what? A map of
No, it's a. I think I have it. Well, I may have one here. Let me go look.
map of China? Or what was that?
Well, no, it was just the ocean. You had Tinian down here. You had Tinian and Saipan down here. Then you had Iwo Jima up here and Japan up here. So there's nothing there but ocean. But hey, that was your problem.
You know, I have at home this device that of Korean War times that allows you to distill the sea water. Do you have something like this?
We had them and everything else,
How
but
they work?
I never used one.
Oh, I know.
I never used one, so I don't know.
What is the longest flight, for example, from start to finish?
Well, that one over there was about as long as we had in combat. That was 12 hours and 15 minutes up and back. But we were slow. You know, the B-29 was not a fast airplane. And I've flown longer missions in terms of time in training when I was down at Batista Field in Cuba. And we'd go out over the South Atlantic there for 18, 19 hours at a time, just for training purposes. And if you got lost out there, you weren't fit to carry an atomic bomb.
What is the feel of a flight, for example, over the ocean and over the land? What's the difference?
Well, over the land, you could look down and see where you're at, for heaven's sakes. And the ocean, you were, unless you had whitecaps down there to read drift on or something of that type, you didn't have anything that would go by. And except,
Even if you live from a big flight, you still see nothing.
yes, well, you had celestial navigation. You did by the stars. You could get fixes on the stars, and that's how you did it over the ocean.
And with this airplane itself, 29, how reliable it was, and if it was broke, could you fix it on a place, or it would have to be sent back to States? Or how
Oh no, they had depots over there that fixed all the B-20. See, we had about 1,200 B-29s over there,
It's a lot.
and everything of that. Look, see this field here. Let me see. There's a picture in here someplace of Northfield on Tinian.
Yeah, I saw it from
Yeah,
the top,
and it's just there's nothing but on one field up in Northfield on
Well, for
Tinian.
example, how many flights before it has to be repaired or something happened to it? How reliable they were?
Well, they're very reliable. Very reliable. You had to change engines occasionally and everything else.
How long it took to change engine?
A day.
Day?
A day? No more than a day. Actually, good mechanics could probably change engines in 2 hours, and this sort of thing. But you had to change engines occasionally. You had to give them the routine maintenance and everything. But hey, unless they get shot up and got a lot of holes in them or something of that type, well, they didn't need much maintenance.
How reliable was this work of mechanics? What's something cases that, for example, of negligence, something happened?
The mechanics were outstanding. And especially on the B-17, well, on all airplanes. But our B-17, the mechanics learned to patch up bullet holes using the side of a gas can. You know, we'd get gas over there in 5-gallon cans.
So they cut it?
And this sort of thing, they just cut a side out of there and riveted it over the hole, and that was it. And they were exceptional at what they did.
But the cans were aluminium too, or they were metal?
No, they're just plain old tin.
For example, what can you see to replace of tail gunner? What visibility was?
Oh, you could see almost everything back of you and back of you.
360 or 180 or?
Well, up for 180. Well, now more than 180, maybe about 210 or something of that type. Yeah.
For example, these people, you navigator or pilot's an officer, but tail gunners was a private, so sergeant maybe, yeah?
Enlisted man, yes.
How did people get to this school, for example? What decided? You go to the Marines, infantry, you go to the tail gunner. Education, what is it, just?
By guess and by God.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
So in the
Now
case
me,
of-
I picked out because I washed out as a pilot. I had a choice of what I would do, and at first I was going to get out of the service and join the RAF because I wanted to fly. And then some guy got a hold of me, some kindly old captain, got a hold of me and says, "Mr. Van Kirk, if you join the RAF, you'll be dead this time next year." Because he said your training will not be adequate, and they'll take you over there and you'll just throw you into combat, and you won't last. So basically, the way you were picked out, in fact, toward the end of the war, a lot of people were in pilot training, navigation training. They didn't need any more of them. We had met too many already. So they just sent them all to gunner school and this sort of thing. But it was strictly by guess and by God, and did the guy look like you when he looked at you or not, and this sort of thing.
Yeah, you never know when you get. But for example, can you, when you come apply, I want to be tail gunner, I want to be this, and I want to be that.
You can ask for it, yes.
But of course.
Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't.
Same thing in the army was they ask when you, but send you whenever they need to.
Hallelujah.
Don't care about your wishes, right? How do you feel after this Hiroshima bombing psychologically? Like after regular raid, or like something you feel it's a beginning of history or something?
Oh, we felt just like a regular raid because number one, when we went over there, what we were trying to do was do something that was going to either shorten or end the war. And we were not trying to make history or anything of that type. We just wanted to end the war and stop the killing. And we were talking especially about the war over in China, Indochina. You know, about 6,000 people are being killed over there every week, even when there's no combat, no invasions or anything going on. So a lot of people were being killed every week, and all we wanted to do was stop the killing and this sort of thing. And the atomic bomb was the most efficient way to do it. So psychologically, none of us ever suffered any problems. We didn't go into any monasteries. We didn't go crazy.
Everybody knows about, mentioned Israeli, pilot that was a meteorological plane that after war went a little bit crazy about it, feel guilty because he chose basically on his decision was decided to Nagasaki bombing because it's a better condition over the cities than over.
Now who was that did that?
Israeli or something, I forgot the name.
Oh, Etherly.
Etherly, yeah.
Etherly.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to understand about this. Etherly was crazy before the war, but he was a very good pilot. I saw Buck Etherly have an airplane like this one day because two props reversed on one side as soon as he threw the switch, and the other side didn't, and the plane just is whipped up like that, just like that, 75 feet off the ground, and he got out of it and landed. And he was an exceptional pilot, but he was also a little nuts. And after the war, he went completely bonkers, tried to rob post offices and everything else.
Really?
Yep. But hey, he's the only one out of the whole group that did that. He had nothing to do with dropping the atomic.
He's the most famous among some population,
Well, among some people, that's right.
Yeah.
But Tibbetts never went crazy. I never went crazy. We all had very normal lives.
What your instruction was if you was, I don't know, hit over Japan? Some airplane, some zero, whatever. You were hit. What your
If we were
instructions
hit?
were? Yeah.
Same instructions if we were flying any other mission. If you were hit over Japan and you shot down, you went down. Now, we did have cyanide pills we could take because we didn't think it was a very good idea to be dropping an atomic bomb and then be shot down over Japan.
So basically, for example, you shut down, not on a city. You have to go down. Can you? What instruction? Do you still have to use the bomb? Could you still drop it or just go with a plane without bomb?
And that if we were hit and the plane was going to be down, every man for himself. To hell with the bomb.
No. So the one instruction. You still have to drop it in case of everything. In spite of first thing, you have to drop the bomb.
Nope. We didn't have. We have no instructions like that. If we were hit and the plane was going down, take care of yourself.
All right. I guess they figure out. But for example, there was some preparation. If the plane with a bomb just hits the ground, it's still explosion or not?
I don't know.
In this case, it was.
I don't know.
In the hands of the enemy. What was instruction in this case?
Well,
just what to do.
Hey, if the enemy could figure out what we were doing, that's tough luck.
Yeah. How many training? Do you have any training exercise or dropping bomb? Maybe model or something? Or you just when you have this mission before this, did you train with this kind of bomb, same size?
I'm
maybe
going to
not?
tell you a secret. Tom Furby and I, Paul Tibbetts and I, only flew 2 times together, all the time before we took the bomb up and dropped it. Now we flew a lot, but I was always in a C-54. Paul and I were always in a C-54, going back to Washington, going down to Los Alamos, going to this place and that place. But in a B-29, training to drop an training to drop a bomb, Paul Tibbetts, Tom Furby, and I were very, very, very personally untrained to drop an atomic bomb.
Why did they choose you, for example, a crew? Just same
Because Paul Tibbetts was the commanding officer, and he was a colonel and commanding officer of the group. He was going to drop it. He was going to take me and Tom along because he trusted us.
Okay.
And he knew what we could do.
So this crew was assembled in place, not from the,
That's right. We're assembled in place.
in place in the, okay, by this lower command, not from Washington.
Not from Washington, no. Not at all.
Question like this, what kind of electronic devices you use for navigation this time? Not mention this mechanical.
We had no electronic
No,
devices.
absolutely.
Radar was the
Radar.
only thing we had. And between Iwo Jima and Japan, you could pick up the volcanic atolls that were sticking up out of water on radar. But that was the only electronic device we had, and this sort of thing. And by the way, we were only 5 seconds late dropping the bomb.
That's good. 5 seconds. So it was exactly minute, hour, minute, seconds, yeah?
That's right.
Well, it's just some kind of goal. You have to reach some goals, they put you goal. How education of the navigator was adequate to the, the goals you have to...
Was my education adequate? Training adequate?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
But hey, the first time I flew a mission over Europe, and I went out of England, it was the first time I'd ever been over 10,000 feet in an airplane. And I looked down and I thought, Jesus, that looks different down there. Because, like, at that time my training was not adequate, but by the time we flew the atomic bomb, I'd had a lot of additional training. A lot of additional experience, I should say, not additional training.
First flight, do you have still instructor with you, or you have a full command as a navigator? First flight, for example.
For a combat mission?
Yeah.
You're on your own.
Yeah, there's no
Not only
anymore.
not only did I not have any instructors or anything with me, but I had a bunch of airplanes behind me, all following me.
Yeah, and basically you have to stars and this device. This is it.
But over Europe, we use almost all visual navigation.
So
Yeah, you can look
maps.
out. Yeah, look out. There's a river. That's the Seine River, and that sort of thing.
So it's a maps.
you had
this,
you had all
navigator.
kind of maps. Yep.
And maybe stars in it.
Yep.
Let's ask this. Question about Tokyo Rose and Lord How, for example. It was I know Americans listen it, yeah?
Oh yes.
For music and everything. There was any restriction from command? You cannot do it, or
Nope.
so
Nope.
you listen.
When Tokyo, when our group got overseas, the 509th group got over on Tinian, Tokyo Rose, the night her broadcast that night says, "I want to welcome the 509th group to the island of Tinian," and she says, "I hope your mission is successful, boys, and have a lot of fun."
Same thing I was told by the guy who served in the Mediterranean. Same thing. They was telling next day of the
Yeah.
results of the action, and how do they know?
yeah.
They have spies, I guess.
They had a lot of spies around.
But how they have it in the Pacific? That's interesting. How effective was it? So you're just listening for the music, or
Oh, sure. Nobody paid any attention to her. For
so
Christ's
they,
sake.
they didn't care? It's all lies and everything.
Nah.
Music is good. The rest of it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Who cares? The same as who was disgusted more? How on all the British guys or Tokyo Rose? What do you would kind of despise more? You don't same
Oh, it
thing.
didn't make any difference.
Oh, maybe
You didn't pay attention to either one of them.
maybe a woman, you know. This Tokyo Rose, did it have an accent or have a good English?
No, she spoke perfect
I know
English.
she was from America.
Perfect
but,
English,
you know,
yeah.
What kind of myth myths, about your flight. White propaganda, black propaganda,
Oh, there's a lot.
Sometimes that's not true.
Well, a lot of things about the flight that are on. Number one, the fact that after the flight, we all went crazy, or a bunch of us went crazy. That's probably the biggest myth about the flight, because nobody on the flight ever went crazy. Buck Etherly flew the weather mission out over Hiroshima, but he was just flying a weather mission, that's all, and that sort of thing. Nobody ever went crazy or anything else. And then there's a lot of other things, myths about the long-range effects of atomic energy and all that sort of stuff that exists. But I think the major myth was that because we flew this flight, so many people died from it and everything, that we all went crazy.
How, for example, your life in the base was organized? Do you ever see entertainment, Bob Hope, for example? How life was every day?
Well,
How many flights you have a day, for example?
Sometimes, hey, I flew one mission over there, and all the time I was over there, I flew 58 over Europe. But it took me a year to fly 58 missions over in Europe. So you didn't fly very often. You flew maybe every 4 or 5, at most every 4 or 5 days.
What about Europe in the early days of the war? More? When you see the Battle of Britain, basically.
In the Battle of Britain, I wasn't in that, of course.
Yeah.
But the British were flying almost every time the Germans came over.
So
They did not set their own schedule. When the Germans came over, they fought. When the Germans didn't come over, they didn't fight. And everything of that type. And when we were over there, primarily we flew missions at almost every time the weather was good. But in England, the weather was seldom good. So you didn't fly very often.